In this video, I'm going to show you how you can visualize changes between two different periods in Power BI without using any custom visuals at all. We're going to try to build something like this, where you're able to select different months that you want to analyze, adjust the month period that you want to compare against, and even select the different categories if you wanted to, or even see them as small multiples, something like this. All of that and more. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, my name is Fernan, and welcome to the Solutions Abroad YouTube channel, where we cover tips, tricks, and best practices when working with Power BI. I upload new videos every week, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified when a new one is out. So before I start, I just want to give a shout out to Gustav Dudek on LinkedIn, because this idea came from one of his posts. He posts a lot of really cool ideas of some of the visuals that you can do in Power BI using out-of-the-box visuals without using any custom visuals. So if you want to learn more about or even see what is possible in Power BI, I'll leave a link to his LinkedIn page in the description box below. So let's start from scratch so you understand exactly how you can visualize something like this in Power BI. So here I've prepared an empty report, or rather a clean report, with just some of the basic tables that we want to visualize for today. So I've already created a line chart here, which just gives total number of sales on all of these different months that we have currently in place. It's being calculated by this measure called sales, which is simply just multiplying the unit price of all of those orders against the number of quantity. We have a few other tables here as well, so let me just go through them very quickly. So we have a simple calendar table, which just has the dates or current range 1996 to 1998, as long as the months in those periods. We have the categories of those products. We have the order details, which contains the unit price and quantity to calculate the sales. You have the orders table, which has the order dates. This is what we link up to the calendar table, as well as the product's name, and how it links back into the category. So I've already prepared the model, at least the very base model, but in fact you can work with your own model to kind of visualize this kind of technique yourself. So just going back to this report view here, there are a few things that we need to set up. The first thing that we need to set up is the ability to choose the months that we want to select or to analyze. And we can simply just do that with this month. Or rather, we can't just do that, because if you try to select a month from this current list, it will filter out the table. What we need to do is we need to create a disconnected table, a disconnected calendar table, so that we can make selections without filtering the table. So it's a technique that I use quite a lot, and there are lots of different use cases that you might want to use it, and this is just one of them. I did cover disconnected tables in a different video, so if you want to learn more about it, go check out that one. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to modeling. We're going to create a new table. I'm going to name this one month slicer, and then we're just going to reference the calendar table, so just to create a duplicate of that. So now, as you can see, if we drag in the month from that, change it into a slicer, we don't want this slider setting, so I'm just gonna make it a tile, something like this. So as you can see, as I make selections, it doesn't filter out the line chart, which is exactly what we want. You might just want to format this a little bit just to make it look slightly different. So I'm just going to change the format here to be month and year. Here we go. There we are. The next thing that we need to set up is a numerical parameter. This is what we will use then to find out which period we want to compare against what we have selected. So if this month slicer is the selected period, how many months from this period do we want to analyze against? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to modeling, and then new parameter, numeric range. We're going to name this one previous period. I'm going to go minimum of 1. Maximum of 20, it can be anything, and then we'll just leave that incrementing to 1, and we'll leave this add slicer to this page right here. So what it will do is it will just add a slicer for us right here, and you can basically just add numbers, which we can then use later in our DAX code. So I'm just gonna adjust this a little bit because I don't really want the slider. So slider off, and then background off as well. So I wanted to have that on the top right here. Great. Okay. So now that we have the two inputs set up now we need to start working on some DAX code. So let's start with the first one here. It's going to be a new measure in our calculations table. So I'm going to name this one start end, and this DAX is basically what is going to define where that start and ending kind of vertical line is, or the horizontal line, the one that goes above these two periods. So actually, just before I start, just to make things easier, I'm going to bring in the month and the start end as well as the sales here in this table, so you can visualize how it looks like on a table against how it looks like on the line chart. Because sometimes I find it easier to see the actual values than a visualized version of it. So let's start by creating a few variables here. I'm going to create this first one called top. And this variable is what we will use to identify what is the highest point in the current context of our line charts. And that's so that is to make sure that this horizontal line that we're going to create is always above the highest points in the chart, just so that it's not conflicting with anything in your visual. So we're going to use max X. And then for our table, we're going to use all selected. And then we'll use the calendar month column. And then the expression is the sales. So that should be it. The next thing that we want to get is the selected month. Actually, just so that I can show you what that looks like, I'm going to return it and just show you what that value looks like at the moment. So 134,000 is the highest number here in our sales. So that's what we wanted to get with that variable. The next variable that we need is something called selected month. So this is now to just find out which month is selected in our month slicer filter. So for this one, we're simply going to use selected value. And then we're going to use month slicer. And again, I'll just put it in the return here so you can see what this does. So as you can see, it's giving me December because that's what is selected here. But as I change the selection, so does the return of that variable. Okay, let's continue. So the next thing is the variable for what is selected for the previous month. So this one is a little bit complicated, so just bear with me here. So the first thing that we're going to do is get the selected month, so the current context, and then get the previous month that is selected, but make it negative like this. And the end of month function that we wrapped it with gives me the current month minus the previous period value in months. So what it does is, if I show you here, so it gives me now the 31st of, this is August, because that's 1, 2, 3 away from November. But as I select October, that adjusts. And as you can see now, as I adjust this one as well to maybe 2 periods, so September, it's giving me July instead. So that's exactly what we want with this variable. So now that we've set up all of our variables, we now need to work on our if statements just to get the value from on just those months, the previous month and the selected month. What we're going to do is we're going to create an if statement to say if the selected month is equals to the current month in context. So I'm just going to wrap it in month, or if the previous month is equals to the calendar month, again in context, but I'm adding an end of month and saying 0 just to make sure, because at the moment the month column is giving me the start of month, whereas the previous month here, I'm getting the end of month. So I need to make sure that when I'm comparing it against the calendar month, I'm converting them into kind of the same range. So they're all looking at the end of month. So what I'm saying here is, so if any of these are true, then give me the highest point multiplied by 10%. So this way we always have the highest value plus 10% on top of it. So we're always having that space at the very top of our charts. So let me just have a look here. Maybe I'm not paying attention. Too few arguments were passed. If selected. Oh yeah, I missed here. Here we go. So as you can see now on this table, where it's giving us the value on the previous month in September, as well as the current one that we've selected, September, and the previous month, the July, which is the period here. So as I change it, the dates are where this is also changes. Okay, it's a bit confusing because I'm sorting it by sales, but if I sort it by months, it makes a lot more sense. So now let's start working on some visuals on our line chart here. So the first thing that we'll need to do is add another y-axis here. So instead of sales, we'll add, well, on top of sales, we'll add the start and end. As you can see, it adds the line. And as we change the selection and the period, so does the line chart changes. Let's work on adding some error bars as well. This is the vertical line on top of these line charts. So from here, we're going to go to the line chart. So click the line charts, then just go to the error bars, and then under sales, let's add the start end and hit enable. And there you go. So you now have a line that goes above and vertically to the points in your line chart. We might just edit this a little bit just to make it look a little bit more similar. So first, we're going to remove the legends. Then on the lines, we're going to adjust the start end line, change that stroke to be similar to the error bar, make the color the same as well. So make it black. And on the error bar, I noticed that there is a marker shape. We'll just make that none. And there you go. That's pretty much done for you. So that already works as it is. So from here, you might want to now get the variance between these 2 points, because obviously now you're pointing them out. You might want to then show it as a label or just show the variance of it. So we're going to have to use another DAX measure to calculate and get those points, get those variance, and find the percentage. So we're going to go back to the data view here. I'm going to create a new measure, and we're just going to recreate some of the steps that we've already created. So I'm going to name this one called variance. Again, selected month is the selected value from our month slicer. And then the previous month is again, so the end of month, or whatever the selected month is, and then get the previous month, but negative, because we're getting negative values there. And then the third variable is the previous month sales. So here we are trying to get whatever the previous month sales is based on what this value is here that we have selected. So we're gonna use the calculate function. This is the easiest way I've found it works. We'll use previous month. Sorry, we can't use previous month. So we'll use dates between. And then we'll use the calendar table, and then we'll feed it the date. So dates between function needs 3 parameters, the start date and the end date. So for the end date, we know what the end date will be, which is just the previous month. But for the start date, we need to get the beginning of that previous month. So what we're going to do is we're going to feed it another one, so called date. The year of this would be the year of the previous month. The month of it would be the month of, again, the previous month, and then the beginning is number 1. So that should give us the previous month sales, right? And then the last, second to last variable that we need. Have I missed something here? Maybe just another closing there. So let me just double check this one, because this is a new function for us, a new measure. So there is an error. Okay, sorry, I messed this one up. So the first needs to be a date column. So now it's giving me 55,000, which is definitely the value from April 1997, which is exactly what we want here. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So let's move on to the next variable here. So this one is called the latest point. So this is basically where we want the label to be, which is going to be the most recent value. So the one that we have selected, basically. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say if end of month selected is equals to end of month, the current calendar month in context, we'll just make it true. Otherwise, oh, here we are again. I forgot closing parenthesis there. Else, we'll just give it false. And then close the if statement. So I've put this into a variable because we're going to reuse it later and I don't want to write it again. So just to show you what the latest point does, it just basically finds out which value or which month is the latest month. So it just gives me true if that's the latest month. So now we work on the actual variance. So this is a long road getting here, but we are almost finished, I promise. So percentage variance. So we're going to say if the latest point is true. So we don't need to say if it's true or not. We just say if it's latest point, then do a divide. So this is where we're doing the variance. So it would be sales minus the previous month's sales. And we'll wrap it around. We'll divide that against the previous month's sales. So that should be the variance. So let me just see that. So it's giving me 26%. That would be an increase since April. So that should be okay for now. So we need to do some formatting there just because 0.26 is not a percentage, but we're going to do some label formatting now because this is actually what we want to show as a variance on our error bars or on our comparison charts. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to now the return, and then we're going to add again an if statement here just to test and check that we are on the latest point, because we just want this to show up on the latest point, not on the previous month as well. So inside that, we're going to add another if statement. We're going to say if the percentage variance is greater than or equals to 0, then we want to have some icons. So to add icons, you just press the Windows dot and look for the icon that you want. So I know already what I want, which are these. So the arrows going up and down. So I'm just going to choose them. And then I'm going to add some space in between. And then I'm going to add some formatting on my percentage variance. So I just want to say 0.0 percentage. And I think I need that one. I think that's it. Let's have a look and see. I'm just messed up something here. I just noticed. So this needs to be outside of this if statement, I believe. Just double check. Yeah, just so that even if it's above or below, it's showing the percentage as well. So that's showing us now the variance. So it's going either up, what the percentage is, and the arrow changing depending if it's up or down in difference. So now we want to add this into our line chart, which should be pretty simple. So now we're going to go to the format settings. We're going to go to the error bars. Sorry, not the error bars. We're going to go to the data labels. We're going to disable the sales one, and for the start and end, make sure that's selected. You will have, or you should have, a new option under values called custom label. If you enable that, you can now set up DAX as your labels. So we're going to use the variance as our label here. As you can see, it's giving us the percentage as well as the up and down only at the latest one that we have selected here. So as you make these selections, that number also changes, and the arrows also point up or down depending on what those changes are. So now let's move on to the last thing. I promise we're almost done, which is adding the colors to these labels, because you might want to show if that change is either good or bad, which we typically denote using some colors, green or red. So what we're going to do is just simply change the color, which we're going to use again using a measure. So we're going to create a new measure in our calculations measure table. Create a new measure here. We're going to call this one color, and then we're going to start with a switch statement. If I can spell switch, expression will be true. And then we're going to, instead of going through all of the logic, we're just going to check what the label contains. So we know that we've set up the up and down arrow. So we know if that's up, it's positive, it should be green. If it's a down arrow, it's negative. So what we're going to do is going to say contain string variance like this. And then if it contains, let's say, an up arrow, then the color needs to be green. And then we'll just copy that one. So if it's a down arrow, it needs to be red. Otherwise, it can be blank. Or just say blank like this. So now we simply just go to the data label once more, go back to the data label colors. We'll click the conditional formatting here. And then under rules, we'll change that to use the color measure. Well, actually, no, we'll just choose the field value and use the color measure. If you hit OK, you'll see that it's now changing the colors as well, depending if it's a positive or negative change. And that's pretty much it for this demo. So as you can see, now you're able to change the periods, change the period you want to compare it against. And if you wanted to, we're gonna just show you quickly. You can see it by category, so you can add the category as a filter on the top, or you can simply just add something like a small multiple. So if you wanted to see them all side by side, we can just add something like this, where you can go category, category name. So as you can see, it's giving us those changes in all of those categories that we have for all of our products. Useful, right? Thanks for watching. As usual, give this video a like if you found it useful. Give it a dislike if you didn't, so I need to do better for next time. Ask your questions in the comment section box below so I can help you and you can help others. If you really like this video, we have a Patreon page where you can support the channel and get exclusive perks like early access, demo files, and credits at the end of these videos. Thanks again for watching and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.